Good evening, and welcome back to Dramatic History. The rain began before Eleanor Vale was summoned to the Duke. It came softly at first, tapping against the windows of the small cottage where she lived with her mother. By midnight, it had become a steady curtain of gray water, turning the narrow lane outside into a ribbon of mud. Eleanor stood beside the kitchen table, holding a letter in both hands. The paper was thick, expensive. The seal had already been broken. She had read it 3 times. Each time the words seemed more impossible. Her mother sat near the dying fire, wrapped in an old wool shawl. Her face had grown thinner over the past winter, and every breath seemed to cost her something. "Who sent it?" her mother asked. Eleanor did not answer. She looked again at the final line. "You are required to present yourself at Ashbourne Hall tomorrow morning. No explanation. No request, only an order." Her mother watched her carefully. Eleanor, the Duke. Her mother's fingers tightened around the shawl. For a moment, she looked frightened. Not surprised, frightened. Eleanor noticed. "You know why he wants me there?" Her mother lowered her eyes. "No, you're lying." The words were gentle, but they carried a certainty Eleanor had never used with her mother before. The older woman turned toward the fire. "You must not go." "I have to." "No, Mother, it is the Duke. I know who he is." "Then you know I cannot simply ignore him." Her mother closed her eyes. The silence between them felt older than the cottage itself. Eleanor folded the letter. "What did Father owe him?" Her mother said nothing. "Mother, still nothing." Eleanor stepped closer. "What did Father owe the Duke?" Her mother finally looked at her. "Everything." The answer made Eleanor's stomach tighten. "That's not an amount." It was never about money. Before Eleanor could ask another question, her mother began coughing, violently. Eleanor immediately knelt beside her. Slowly, she reached for the glass of water. Her mother's hand trembled as she took it. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then her mother whispered, "You must be careful at Ashbourne." "Why?" "Because powerful families do not forgive easily." Eleanor frowned. "What did our family do to them?" Her mother looked toward the locked wooden chest beneath the bed. Something changed in her expression. Fear, then regret. "Nothing you need to know." Eleanor followed her gaze. "What is in that chest?" "Nothing. You've kept it locked since I was a child." "Eleanor, what is in it?" Her mother shook her head. "Promise me you will never open it." Eleanor stared at her. "Why?" "Because some truths destroy the people who discover them." The following morning, Eleanor traveled to Ashbourne Hall. She wore her best dress. It was dark blue, nearly black, with a collar that had been repaired twice. Her gloves were old. Her shoes were polished carefully. She carried no jewelry except a small silver locket her mother had given her years ago. The carriage sent by the Duke arrived precisely at 8. The driver did not speak, neither did Eleanor. For nearly an hour, she watched the countryside disappear behind the rain-streaked glass. When Ashbourne Hall finally appeared, she understood why people spoke of it in whispers. The estate rose from the hills like a monument. Stone towers, tall windows, iron gates, a long avenue lined with ancient trees. It was beautiful and cold. The carriage stopped beneath the main entrance. A footman opened the door. "Miss Vale." Eleanor stepped down. Her shoes touched the wet stone. She looked up at the enormous doorway. Then she entered. Inside, everything was polished. Marble floors, dark wood, portraits framed in gold. A chandelier hung above the entrance like a frozen crown. Eleanor suddenly became aware of every imperfection in her clothing. A loose thread, a faded cuff, the faint mark on one glove. A servant led her through several rooms before opening a pair of tall doors. "The Duke is waiting." Eleanor entered. Adrian Ashbourne stood beside the fireplace. He was taller than she had expected. His black coat was perfectly fitted, his dark hair neatly combed, his expression unreadable. He did not look like a man who had invited a young woman into his home. He looked like a man who had summoned someone to court. "Miss Vale, Your Grace." His eyes moved over her. Not rudely, carefully, as though he were examining a document. "You came. You ordered me to." A faint tension appeared in his jaw. Sit. Eleanor remained standing. I prefer to know why I am here first. Adrian looked at her for a moment. Then he walked toward the desk. A document rested there. Beside it was a small silver bell. I understand your father left debts. He did. He owed my family a considerable amount. I know. Your mother cannot pay them. No. And you cannot. No. Adrian's expression remained calm. That leaves you. Eleanor's fingers tightened around the letter. What do you want? He looked directly at her. I want you to marry me. For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood him. The rain tapped against the tall windows. What? You heard me. You want me to marry you? Yes. Why? Because the marriage will settle your family's debt. Eleanor stared at him. You are offering marriage as payment. I am offering your family protection. Protection from whom? From me. She almost laughed. Instead, she looked at him with disbelief. You cannot be serious. I am entirely serious. I have never met you. You have met me now. That is hardly enough reason to marry. For you, perhaps. The answer was so cold that Eleanor felt something inside her harden. What happens if I refuse? Adrian was silent. Then he pushed another document toward her. Eleanor looked down. It was a legal notice. Her mother's cottage. She read the words twice. The property could be seized immediately if the debt remained unpaid. Her hands began to shake. You would take our home if you refuse. My mother is ill. I know. You know. I know everything concerning the debt. Eleanor looked up. Then you know she will have nowhere to go. Yes. The coldness in his voice frightened her, but beneath it, there was something else. Something she could not identify. Perhaps hesitation. Perhaps guilt. She hated herself for noticing. How long? Adrian frowned. How long what? Would the marriage last? Until death. Eleanor looked away. She could hear the clock on the mantel. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound seemed to count down the remaining pieces of her freedom. Separate rooms? Yes. Separate lives? For the most part. No children? His expression changed slightly. That will not be required. She looked back at him. You have thought about everything. Yes, except whether I would agree. Adrian's eyes held hers. I knew you would. Eleanor's pride almost made her refuse, but then she remembered her mother's cough, the cold cottage, the physician who had stopped visiting because they could not pay. Her hand slowly closed around the silver locket at her throat. What happens to my mother? She remains in the cottage. Rent? None. Medical care? Paid. Food? Provided. And in exchange, I become your wife. Yes. Eleanor looked toward the window. Rain ran down the glass in crooked lines. She thought of all the things she had once imagined marriage might be. Warm hands, a gentle voice, someone asking what she wanted, someone who would wait for her answer. This was none of those things. She turned back. I will do it. Adrian's expression did not change, but his fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the desk. You agree? I have no choice. I understand. No, Eleanor said quietly. You don't. For the first time, he looked almost uncomfortable, but only for a moment. The wedding was arranged 6 days later. There were no celebrations, no newspaper announcement, no grand gathering of aristocrats. The Duke did not want attention, neither did Eleanor. The ceremony took place in a small private chapel on the estate. Rain fell against the stained glass windows. Eleanor stood beside Adrian beneath the pale light of the candles. She could smell old stone and melted wax. The priest spoke. She barely heard him. Her eyes remained fixed on the small crucifix above the altar. Then came the vows. Adrian answered first. I do. His voice was steady. Eleanor looked at him. He did not look at her. Then it was her turn. She swallowed. I do. The words felt like a door closing. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. Adrian finally turned toward her. His eyes were gray, cold, but not empty. He held out his hand. Eleanor hesitated, then placed hers in it. His fingers closed around hers, warm, firm. For one strange second, she forgot why she was standing there. Then he released her. You are Duchess of Ashbourne now. Eleanor looked at the man she had married. I do not feel like one. You will. His answer was quiet, almost gentle. that frightened her more than his cruelty. That evening, Eleanor was shown to her new rooms. They were larger than her entire childhood home. A fire burned in the marble fireplace. Fresh flowers stood beside the bed. A silver tea service waited near the window. Everything was beautiful. Nothing felt like hers. She removed her gloves, then the silver locket. As she placed it on the table, she noticed a tiny scratch across its surface. She had seen it hundreds of times. But tonight, she noticed something beneath the scratch, a symbol. Tai Fei, a crowned stag. She frowned. Before she could examine it, there was a knock. Adrian entered. He had removed his formal coat. His sleeves were rolled slightly at the wrist. He looked less like a duke now, more like a tired man. You should rest. I cannot. Why? Because I am married to a stranger. He looked at her. You will get used to me. I hope not. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close. It vanished quickly. He looked toward the table. His eyes stopped on the locket. For the first time that evening, his expression changed. Where did you get that? Eleanor picked it up. My mother. Give it to me. No. His voice became colder. I asked you to give it to me, and I said no. Adrian took one step toward her, then stopped. His eyes remained fixed on the locket. That belonged to my family. Eleanor stared at him. That is impossible. I am not mistaken. He looked at the back of the locket. His face slowly lost its color. Where did your mother get this? She said it belonged to my father. Your father? Yes. Adrian looked at her. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he whispered, Your father was never who you thought he was. Eleanor felt the room grow colder. What does that mean? Adrian's gaze remained on the locket. It means your family has been lying to you. About what? He looked into her eyes. Before he could answer, footsteps sounded in the corridor. Adrian immediately turned toward the door. Someone stopped outside. A man's voice came through the wood. Your Grace? Adrian did not answer. The man spoke again. Your cousin has arrived. Adrian's expression hardened. Tell him I am unavailable. The footsteps moved away. Eleanor watched him. Who was that? Frederick Ashbourne. Your cousin? Yes. Why did you look frightened? I did not. You did. Adrian looked at her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Lock your door tonight. Eleanor frowned. Why? His hand rested on the door handle. Because there are things in this house that have been hidden for a very long time. He looked back at her. And now that you are my wife, they may come looking for you. The door closed. Eleanor stood alone. She looked down at the silver locket in her hand. For the first time, she wondered whether her mother had been afraid of poverty at all. Perhaps poverty had only been the disguise. Perhaps the truth had been hiding beneath her entire life. And somewhere inside Ashbourne Hall, someone already knew exactly who Eleanor Vale really was. Eleanor did not sleep. Long after the candles had burned low, she remained beside the window, staring at the silver locket in her hand. The Duke's warning had not left her. Lock your door tonight. She had obeyed. But now the locked door felt less like protection and more like a reminder that she was trapped inside a house full of secrets. She turned the locket over. The tiny crowned stag was still there. She had seen it before. Perhaps hundreds of times, but never understood it. Her mother had always called the locket an old keepsake from Eleanor's father. Nothing more. Eleanor had never questioned it, until tonight. A faint sound came from the corridor. She froze. Footsteps. Slow. Then silence. She waited. Nothing. She reached for the candle. The flame trembled as she crossed the room. At the door she stopped. Someone was standing outside. She could see the shadow beneath the door. Eleanor held her breath. A quiet knock followed. Once, then twice. She did not answer. The shadow remained. Then a man's voice whispered, Your Grace? Eleanor recognized it. The servant who had brought her to the Duke earlier that morning. She opened the door only a few inches. What is it? The servant lowered his voice. His Grace instructed me to tell you that Lord Frederick has left the house. Eleanor frowned. Why are you telling me? The servant hesitated. Because His Grace said you should know. Did he say anything else? The man's eyes shifted toward the empty corridor. No, Your Grace. He bowed and disappeared. Eleanor closed the door. She stood there for a moment. Then she realized something. Adrian had told her to lock her door. But he had also sent someone to make sure she knew Frederick was gone. Why? She returned to the table. The locket was still there. She opened it again. Inside was the tiny portrait of her mother. Beside it was a second compartment. Eleanor had never noticed the narrow seam. She pressed it. Nothing happened. She pressed harder. A small metallic click sounded. The hidden compartment opened. Inside was a folded piece of paper. Her hands went cold. She unfolded it. There were only 6 words. If she ever asks, tell her nothing. Eleanor stared at the handwriting. She knew it. Her mother's. The paper trembled between her fingers. Her mother had hidden this. Not from the Duke, from her. A sudden knock struck the door. Eleanor quickly folded the paper. Who is it? No answer. She moved toward the door. Who? This time Adrian's voice came through. Eleanor. She hesitated, then opened it. The Duke stood in the corridor. His expression was serious. You should be sleeping. So should you. I had business to attend to. With Frederick? His eyes narrowed. Who told you? You sent someone to tell me he left. Adrian stared at her. Then his gaze dropped to the locket in her hand. You opened it. Eleanor closed her fingers around it. There was a hidden compartment. His face changed. What did you find? Why should I tell you? Because it may be dangerous. That is becoming your favorite answer. He stepped inside. Eleanor. She held up the folded paper. This was hidden inside. Adrian looked at it. Give it to me. No. His expression hardened. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Then explain it. He was silent. Tell me why your family crest is on my mother's locket. Adrian looked away. Then back at her. My father owned one exactly like it. Mine? Yes. Where is his? Gone. Convenient. His jaw tightened. You think I am lying. I think everyone in this house is. Adrian walked toward the fireplace. For several moments, he stared into the flames. Then he spoke. My father had a mistress. Eleanor's expression changed. Isabel. He nodded. My mother knew. What happened? She disappeared. My mother? Yes. Why? I was told she had taken you and fled. Eleanor shook her head. She never left England. I know. You know. I discovered that 3 years ago. Eleanor stared at him. And you said nothing. I did not know where she was. You could have searched. I did. The words came quietly. I searched for years. Eleanor did not know what to say. Adrian continued. My father died before I could confront him. How? Officially. He gave a bitter smile. A stroke. And unofficially. No one knows. You suspect murder. I suspect many things. He turned toward her. But I never suspected you. Eleanor's heart beat faster. Why? Because every record said Isabel Vale had one daughter with a tenant farmer. She didn't. No. Adrian's gaze moved toward the locket. She had a daughter with my father. Silence. Eleanor looked down. So I am your father's child. Yes. Your half-sister. Adrian's expression changed. No. She looked up. What? You are not my father's illegitimate daughter. He stepped closer. You are something much more complicated. Eleanor's confusion deepened. Then what am I? Adrian did not answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and removed a folded document. He placed it on the table. This was found among my father's private papers. Eleanor opened it. It was a birth record. Her eyes moved across the page. Mother, Isabel Vale. Father, Charles Vale. She frowned. That is not your father. No. Then why is this here? Because Charles Vale was not a tenant farmer. Eleanor looked at him. Who was he? Adrian's voice became quieter. The eldest son of the late Earl of Wexford. Eleanor's breath caught. What? Your mother was never married to him. Then how? He died before your birth. Eleanor stared at the document. Then my father was a nobleman. Yes, but not your father. No. She looked toward the locket. And the Ashbourne crest. Adrian's expression darkened. That is the part we do not understand. A silence settled between them. Then Eleanor remembered something. The paper. What? She unfolded the note. Adrian read it. His face became completely still. If she ever asks, tell her nothing. He read it again, then looked at Eleanor. Your mother wrote this? Yes. When? I don't know. Adrian took the paper carefully. He examined the ink. The paper is old. How old? At least 20 years. Eleanor looked at him. Then she knew something before I was born. Yes. What? I don't know. She stared at him. For once, the Duke seemed to be telling the truth. That frightened her more than his lies. A noise came from downstairs. A door slammed. Adrian immediately turned. Eleanor watched him. Who is awake? I don't know. You're the Duke. That doesn't mean I know everything that happens under my roof. He moved toward the door. Eleanor followed. They reached the staircase. The hall below was dark. Only one candle burned near the entrance. Then they heard voices. 2 men. One was Frederick. The other was unfamiliar. Adrian stepped in front of Eleanor. Stay here. She ignored him. They descended quietly. At the bottom of the stairs, the voices became clearer. You promised she would never return. Frederick, another man answered. She was never supposed to be found. She is married to Adrian now. That changes nothing. It changes everything. Eleanor looked at Adrian. His face was hard. The stranger continued. If the girl discovers the truth, the estate will not belong to Adrian. Frederick whispered something Eleanor could not hear. The stranger replied, then she must never discover it. Eleanor felt Adrian's hand close around her wrist. He pulled her backward. Too late. A floorboard creaked. The voices stopped. Frederick looked toward the staircase. Who's there? Adrian stepped into view. Enough. Frederick's face went pale. The stranger turned. He was an older man, perhaps 60, dressed in a dark traveling coat. His eyes moved immediately toward Eleanor. For a moment, he looked shocked, then frightened. Adrian noticed. Who are you? The man said nothing. Adrian stepped closer. I asked you a question. The man looked at Frederick. Frederick lowered his eyes. Finally, the stranger spoke. My name is Mr. Blackwood. Why are you here? I came to see Lord Frederick. That is not what I asked. The man glanced at Eleanor. I came because of her. Adrian's expression changed. Leave. I cannot. Then I will have you removed. Mr. Blackwood smiled faintly. You should hear what I have to say first. Adrian stepped between them. You have nothing to say to my wife. Blackwood looked past him. That woman is not merely your wife. Eleanor felt her stomach tighten. Blackwood continued. She is the last surviving member of a family your father spent 20 years trying to erase. Adrian's face became cold. Which family? Blackwood looked directly at Eleanor. The Wexfords. Silence. Eleanor had heard the name. Everyone had. The Earl of Wexford had died without a surviving heir. At least, that was what society believed. Eleanor whispered. My father. Blackwood nodded. Charles Wexford. Adrian looked at Eleanor. She seemed unable to breathe. But if my father was the Earl's son, you were born with a claim to the Wexford title. Blackwood paused. And more importantly, to a fortune worth considerably more than Ashbourne. Frederick stepped forward. You should not have told her. Blackwood ignored him. There is more. Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. What? Blackwood looked at him. Your father knew Eleanor was alive. Adrian's eyes narrowed. He ordered her death. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Adrian did not move. Why? Because Charles Wexford left a legal document naming his unborn child as heir. Blackwood looked at Eleanor. If you were alive, the Ashbourne family would lose everything they had gained through a forged succession. Adrian's expression changed. You are saying my father stole the Wexford inheritance? Yes. Then why did he allow Eleanor to live? He didn't. Eleanor felt cold. What do you mean? Blackwood looked at her. Someone else saved you. Who? He hesitated. Your mother. Eleanor closed her eyes. Her mother's face appeared in her mind. The endless fear, the locked chest, the warnings, the lies. She had spent years believing her mother had hidden the truth because she was ashamed. Now she understood. Her mother had hidden the truth because someone had been trying to kill her daughter. Adrian looked at Blackwood. "Where is the legal document?" Blackwood's expression tightened. "Your father destroyed the original." "Then how do you know?" "Because I saw it." "When?" 22 years ago. Adrian stepped closer. "Where is the copy?" Blackwood looked toward Eleanor. "With her." Eleanor froze. "What?" "The copy was never destroyed." Adrian turned toward her. "What does he mean?" Blackwood pointed toward the silver locket. "Your mother did not hide a portrait inside that locket." Eleanor opened it. "The portrait is a decoy." She stared at him. Blackwood continued. "The real document is hidden beneath it." Eleanor's fingers trembled. She examined the tiny compartment again. There was another seam. She pressed it. The back panel came loose. A tiny rolled piece of parchment fell into her palm. No one spoke. She slowly unrolled it. The writing was faded, but the seal was unmistakable. The Wexford crest. Adrian stepped closer. Eleanor looked down at the document. There was only one sentence she could read clearly. "I leave my estate and title to the child born of Charles Wexford and Isabel Vale." Eleanor's hands began to shake. Adrian stared at the parchment. The Duke of Ashbourne had spent his entire life believing his title was secure. Now he was looking at the document that could destroy his inheritance, and the woman holding it was his wife. His eyes met hers. Neither spoke. Then somewhere upstairs, a gunshot shattered the silence. The gunshot echoed through Ashbourne Hall. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then Eleanor heard Adrian's voice. "Stay here." He was already running toward the staircase. She followed. "Adrian." He stopped halfway up and turned. "Do not move. I am not staying here alone." His expression hardened. "Eleanor, I heard the shot, and that is precisely why you should stay." She looked at the parchment still clutched in her hand. "If someone came for this, then they came for me." Adrian's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. "Stay behind me." They continued upstairs. Frederick and Mr. Blackwood followed. The corridor was dark except for the candlelight spilling from the sconces. Smoke drifted through the air. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. They reached the western gallery. One of the windows was open. Rain blew against the floor. A portrait had fallen from the wall. Beneath it lay a man. Eleanor stopped. It was one of the household servants. He was conscious, but barely. Blood darkened his shoulder. Adrian knelt beside him. "Who fired the shot?" The servant struggled to speak. "The library." He coughed. "Someone was inside." Adrian stood. "Frederick, get the physician." Frederick hesitated. "Now." The older man hurried away. Adrian turned toward Blackwood. "Search the east corridor." Blackwood nodded. Then Adrian looked at Eleanor. "Go to your room." "No. This is not the time to argue. Someone has already tried to kill someone in your house, and I will deal with it. You cannot keep ordering me around." His eyes met hers. "I can when someone is hunting you." The words silenced her. He stepped closer. His voice dropped. "I forced you into this marriage. I will not allow that decision to become the reason you die." Eleanor stared at him. There was no arrogance in his voice, only fear. For her, she had never heard that emotion from him before. Then a sound came from the library. A chair scraping across the floor. Adrian turned. The library door was open. He drew a pistol from inside his coat. Eleanor's breath caught. He looked at her once. "Stay behind me." They entered. The room was empty. Books lay scattered across the carpet. The fire had nearly gone out. A drawer had been pulled from Adrian's desk and emptied onto the floor. Eleanor recognized the papers immediately. Her mother's letters. Someone had been searching for them. Adrian crossed the room. He examined the open drawer. Who knew these were here? Blackwood stepped inside. Someone who knew the old records. Adrian looked at him. "You?" Blackwood's face hardened. "If I wanted the papers, I would not have announced myself." "Then who?" Frederick appeared in the doorway. His face was pale. "The servant is alive." Adrian nodded. "Did he identify the attacker?" "No." Frederick glanced toward Eleanor, then toward the parchment in her hand. His expression changed. You still have it? Eleanor closed her fingers around it. Yes. Frederick swallowed. Then we have a problem. Adrian looked at him. We already had one. No. Frederick stepped into the room. This is worse. He closed the door. The Wexford document cannot simply establish her inheritance. Eleanor frowned. What else does it do? Frederick looked at Adrian. It proves that your father committed fraud. Adrian said nothing. Frederick continued. If the document reaches the crown, the Ashbourne succession could be challenged. And the estate could be seized. Eleanor stared at him. What would happen to Adrian? Frederick looked at her. He could lose the title. Silence. Eleanor looked at Adrian. The thought should have satisfied her. For years, men like him had decided the lives of women like her. Now she possessed the power to take everything from him, yet she felt no satisfaction, only uncertainty. Adrian noticed. You do not have to decide anything tonight. She looked at him. You would let me? Yes. Even if it destroys you. He held her gaze. Yes. The answer was so simple that it hurt. Before Eleanor could respond, Blackwood spoke. There is something you should know. Adrian turned. What? Your father was not acting alone. Frederick's expression tightened. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Explain. The Wexford inheritance was transferred to Ashbourne through a private agreement. Between whom? Blackwood hesitated. Your grandmother. Adrian stared at him. My grandmother was involved? She arranged the transfer. Why? Because she believed Charles Wexford had no legitimate heir. Eleanor spoke quietly. But he did. Yes, me. Blackwood nodded. Your mother was pregnant when the agreement was signed. Eleanor looked at Adrian. Then why didn't they simply wait until I was born? Blackwood's voice became grim. Because they knew what would happen if you survived. Adrian looked toward the rain-streaked window. The entire Ashbourne inheritance would collapse. Yes. And my father knew. Yes. Then why did he not kill Eleanor himself? Blackwood looked at him. Because he couldn't find her. Eleanor felt a strange chill. My mother escaped. She did. With me. Yes. Where did she go? Blackwood's expression changed. North. Eleanor remembered something. Her childhood. The cottage. The old village. The years when her mother refused to speak about the past. But there was something else. A memory. A very small one. A man visiting their cottage when she was perhaps 5 years old. A black carriage. Her mother crying afterward. Eleanor looked at Blackwood. Was it you? He went still. You came to our cottage. Blackwood's face softened. You remember. You gave me a silver coin. Yes. Eleanor's eyes widened. You told my mother she had to leave. I did. Why? Because your father had discovered where you were. Eleanor felt dizzy. My father? Charles Wexford. He was alive? For a short time. What happened to him? Blackwood looked toward the floor. He was murdered. The words settled over the room. Eleanor could barely breathe. By whom? We never proved it, but you suspect the Ashbournes. Blackwood looked at Adrian. I suspect someone who had everything to lose if Charles survived. Adrian's face had become expressionless. My father. Possibly. Frederick stepped forward. You are making accusations without proof. Blackwood turned. And you are defending a dead man who cannot defend himself. Frederick's face reddened. Adrian raised one hand. Enough. The room fell silent. Then Eleanor noticed something. The open drawer. One document was missing. She walked toward the desk. What are you looking for? Adrian asked. My mother's letters. She examined the scattered papers. One is missing. Which one? I don't know. She looked again. Then she remembered. The letter she had read earlier. The one mentioning the child. She searched through the papers. Nothing. Adrian came beside her. Which letter? The one that said my mother was afraid for the child. He looked at Blackwood. Someone took it. Yes. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Why would anyone steal one letter when the inheritance document is more important? No one answered. She looked at Adrian. Because the letter contains something the document doesn't. Adrian's expression changed. What? The identity of the person who helped my mother escape. Blackwood went completely still. Eleanor noticed. You know. He looked away. Mr. Blackwood, he said nothing. Who helped her? His silence became an answer. Adrian stepped toward him. You know. Blackwood closed his eyes. Yes. Who? He looked at Eleanor. Your mother's younger sister. Eleanor stared. I don't have an aunt. You do. My mother told me she was an only child. She lied. Again. Another lie. Another piece of the life Eleanor thought she knew disappearing beneath her feet. Where is she? Blackwood hesitated. She died. When? 7 years ago. Eleanor's voice became smaller. Did she leave anything? Yes. What? A letter. Where is it? Blackwood looked toward the door. Someone stole that too. Adrian's eyes darkened. How many people are searching for these documents? Enough. A sound came from the corridor. Everyone turned. The door opened. A maid stood there. She was pale. Your Grace. Adrian moved toward her. What is it? The injured servant. She swallowed. He is gone. Adrian's expression changed. What do you mean gone? The physician arrived, but the room was empty. Eleanor felt a chill. Could he have left? The maid shook her head. He was badly wounded. Adrian walked past her. Show me. They followed her through the corridor. The servant's room was empty. The bed was stained with blood. The window stood open. On the floor beneath it was a single black glove. Adrian picked it up. He examined it. Then his eyes moved toward Eleanor. What? He turned the glove over. Inside was a small embroidered symbol, a crowned stag. Eleanor stared. The Ashbourne crest. Adrian's face hardened. Yes, but why would an Ashbourne servant attack someone? He may not be a servant. Frederick looked alarmed. What are you saying? Adrian dropped the glove onto the bed. I am saying someone has been inside this house for a long time. Eleanor looked toward the open window. And they know about me. Yes. Then why didn't they kill me tonight? Adrian looked at her. I don't know. Blackwood spoke quietly. Perhaps because they need something first. Eleanor's hand tightened around the Wexford document. The parchment. Blackwood nodded. Or you. Silence. Adrian stepped toward Eleanor. You will stay in my rooms tonight. She looked at him. Your rooms. They are guarded. I can stay in mine. No, I don't need. You do. His voice was firm. She stared at him. Is that an order? Yes. She almost argued. Then she saw his expression. He was genuinely afraid. Not for himself, for her. She nodded. Fine. Adrian led her toward his private quarters. The room was darker than hers, less decorated, more personal. Books lined one wall. A sword rested above the fireplace. A portrait stood on a small table. Eleanor stopped. It was Adrian's mother. She looked elegant, beautiful, sad. Eleanor stepped closer. She looks familiar. Adrian stood behind her. She was. Did she know my mother? Yes. How well? He was silent. Eleanor turned. Adrian, my mother loved your mother. Eleanor's expression changed. What? They were close before everything happened. Then why did she allow me to be hidden? She tried to help. Did she know about me? Yes. Did she know I was the heir? Adrian looked at the portrait. Yes. Eleanor felt a strange ache in her chest. Then why did she never tell you? She tried. He paused. My father stopped her. Eleanor looked at him. How? Adrian's face became distant. She disappeared. What do you mean? She died when I was 16. Eleanor's voice softened. I am sorry. He looked at her. For a moment, the Duke seemed younger. Not 32, not powerful, just a son remembering the mother he had lost. Thank you. It was the first time he had spoken those words to her. Eleanor sat beside the fire. Adrian remained standing. Neither knew what to say. Then she noticed blood on his sleeve. You're hurt. He looked down. A shallow cut crossed his forearm. I didn't notice. Sit. He looked surprised. Eleanor, sit. Perhaps because he was tired. Perhaps because he was beginning to realize she was no longer the frightened girl who had entered Ashbourne Hall. He sat. She found a clean cloth and gently wrapped his arm. His eyes remained on her hands. "You don't have to do that. I know." Her fingers brushed his wrist. He became very still. She noticed. "So do I frighten you?" "No." "Then what?" He looked at her. "You make it difficult to remember that this marriage was supposed to be an arrangement." Eleanor's hands stopped. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. Then a bell rang somewhere in the distance. Adrian stood immediately. "What is it?" "The chapel bell." Eleanor frowned. "It is midnight." "Yes." He moved toward the window. The bell rang again. Once, twice, 3 times, then stopped. Adrian's face changed. "What does that mean?" He looked at Eleanor. "It means someone has entered the family crypt." Her blood ran cold. "Why?" Adrian reached for his coat. "Because the last person buried there knew the truth about your birth." He looked at the Wexford document in her hand. "And if someone is searching the crypt tonight," he opened the door, "they may already know where the second half of your inheritance is hidden." Adrian did not wait for another bell. He took a candle from the corridor and descended the eastern staircase, with Eleanor close behind him. The storm had weakened, but the wind still moved through the old halls with a low, mournful sound. Neither spoke. At the end of the passage stood a narrow iron door. Beyond it was the family chapel. The candles inside had been extinguished. Moonlight entered through the stained glass, painting the stone floor in faded patches of blue and crimson. Adrian crossed the chapel. Eleanor followed. At the far end, behind the altar, was a small door she had never noticed. Adrian unlocked it. A staircase descended into darkness. "The crypt," he said. Eleanor looked down. "How many people know about this?" "Very few." "Frederick?" "No." "Blackwood?" "Yes." Adrian took the first step. Eleanor followed. The air became colder. The walls were damp, and the smell of earth grew stronger as they descended. At the bottom, a long stone corridor stretched before them. Rows of family tombs stood on either side. Names were carved into the walls. Ashbourne, Ashbourne, Ashbourne. Generations of power reduced to names carved in stone. Eleanor's eyes moved across them. Then she saw one name that made her stop. Henry Ashbourne, the late Duke, Adrian's father. The tomb had been opened. The stone slab was displaced. Eleanor stared. "Someone has been inside." Adrian approached. His expression became grim. "Recently." He raised the candle. The inside of the tomb was empty. Eleanor frowned. "His coffin is gone." Adrian said nothing. "What does that mean?" "It means someone removed it." "Why?" Before Adrian could answer, something moved in the darkness. He turned sharply. A figure disappeared behind a pillar. "Stay here." He ran after it. Eleanor followed despite his order. She reached the corner just as Adrian caught the intruder. The man struggled. Adrian forced him against the stone wall. "Who sent you?" The man said nothing. Adrian tightened his grip. "Answer me." The stranger finally laughed. "You should be asking your wife." Eleanor froze. Adrian looked toward her. The stranger smiled. "She knows more than she thinks." Adrian struck him across the jaw. The man collapsed. Eleanor stared. "You could have killed him." "He was going to." She looked at the stranger. A small knife had fallen from his coat. Adrian picked it up. There was blood on the blade. Not fresh. Old. He examined the handle. The crowned stag was carved into it. Again, the same symbol, the same family crest. Eleanor felt a growing uneasiness. Why does everyone carrying that crest want me? Adrian looked at her. "I don't know. You're lying." "I am not." "Then what are you hiding?" His expression tightened. "I found something earlier." "What?" He reached inside his coat and removed a folded letter. "I found this beneath the floor of my father's study." Eleanor took it. The handwriting was unfamiliar. She read the first line. "To the woman who survives the Wexford child." Her heart stopped. She continued. "If you are reading this, Henry has failed to erase the truth." Eleanor looked up. "Who wrote it?" "I don't know." She read on. "The rightful inheritance was divided into 2 documents. The first establishes the heir. The second identifies the witnesses and the location of the original succession record. Without both, the claim can be challenged. Eleanor lowered the letter. The second document. Adrian nodded. It's somewhere in Ashbourne. Where? That is what I don't know. She looked at the unconscious stranger. He might. Adrian glanced toward him. Then we need him alive. They carried the man to an unused room near the servants' quarters. By dawn, he had disappeared. Again. No guard had seen him leave. No door had opened. No window had been broken. It was as though the man had never existed. Adrian stood in the empty room, staring at the floor. Eleanor remained behind him. He knew about the second document. Yes. And he knew about me. Yes. Then someone inside this house is helping them. Adrian turned. I know. Who? I don't know. She studied him. You really don't? No. He looked exhausted. For the first time, Eleanor noticed the shadows beneath his eyes. You haven't slept. Neither have you. I have less reason to. His gaze softened. You have more. Before she could answer, footsteps approached. A maid appeared at the doorway. Your Grace. Adrian turned. What is it? Your mother has arrived. Eleanor frowned. Your mother. My aunt, Adrian corrected. Lady Margaret. The maid lowered her eyes. She wishes to speak with the Duchess. Adrian's expression immediately changed. No. The maid hesitated. She insists. Tell her I refuse. She said you would. Adrian went silent. Then he looked at Eleanor. Do not speak to her alone. Why? Because she is dangerous. A voice came from the corridor. Adrian. An elegant woman entered. She was perhaps 60 years old, dressed in dark mourning silk. Her hair was silver. Her posture was perfect. Her eyes were cold. Lady Margaret Ashbourne. She looked at Eleanor, then at the locket around her neck. For one brief second, genuine shock crossed her face. Then it disappeared. So, she said softly, the girl finally came home. Eleanor felt the words like a blow. Home? Lady Margaret smiled. You were always going to return. Adrian stepped between them. You will leave. Lady Margaret looked at him. You have no idea what you have done. No, I know exactly what I have done. No. Her eyes moved toward Eleanor. You married the one woman who could destroy this family. Eleanor's heart began to race. Adrian's voice became dangerously quiet. Explain. Lady Margaret smiled faintly. Ask your wife. Eleanor frowned. What does she mean? Lady Margaret walked toward her. Adrian stopped her. Stay where you are. The older woman laughed softly. You sound like your father. Adrian stiffened. I am nothing like him. Not yet. She looked at Eleanor. Did your mother tell you why she chose the name Eleanor? Eleanor's expression changed. No. Lady Margaret's eyes narrowed. Of course she didn't. Why? Because the name belonged to your grandmother. Eleanor stared at her. My grandmother? Isabel's mother. But I never knew her. She died believing you were dead. Adrian looked at his aunt. You knew Eleanor was alive. Yes. How long? 22 years. Silence. Adrian's face hardened. And you said nothing. I was trying to protect the estate. You were trying to protect yourself. Lady Margaret's expression did not change. The distinction is often meaningless in families like ours. Eleanor stepped forward. Where is the second document? Lady Margaret looked at her, then smiled. There she is. What? The Wexford heir. Her voice became almost affectionate. You have your father's eyes. Eleanor's throat tightened. You knew him. I knew Charles very well. Did you help kill him? Adrian turned toward Eleanor. But Lady Margaret answered, No. Eleanor waited. I ordered someone else to. The room went silent. Adrian stared at his aunt. What? Lady Margaret's face remained calm. I did not expect him to survive as long as he did. Adrian looked horrified. You murdered him. I protected this family. He was your nephew. He was a threat. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. You knew my mother. Yes. You knew I existed. Yes. You allowed us to live in poverty. Yes. Why? Lady Margaret's expression hardened. Because poverty was safer than nobility. Eleanor shook her head. That makes no sense. It does if you understand what your birth meant. Lady Margaret stepped closer. Charles Wexford did not merely leave you a title. She lowered her voice. He left you control of the Wexford Trust. Adrian stared at her. What trust? The money was hidden. Where? Lady Margaret looked at Eleanor. Under Ashbourne. Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. The second document is not a document at all, Lady Margaret continued. It is a key. Adrian's eyes narrowed. A key to what? The original Wexford Trust. Silence. Eleanor touched the locket. The locket? Lady Margaret smiled. Your mother was clever. Adrian looked at Eleanor. She slowly removed the locket. Lady Margaret continued. The silver locket contains half the mechanism, and the other half. Lady Margaret looked toward the family chapel. The crypt. Adrian understood. His face changed. My father's coffin. Yes, the coffin was removed because someone was searching for the key. Lady Margaret nodded, but they searched the wrong place. Eleanor looked at her. Where is it? Lady Margaret's smile disappeared. I don't know. Adrian stepped forward. You're lying. No. Then who does? Lady Margaret looked at Eleanor. Your mother. Eleanor's heart sank. My mother. She knew where the trust was hidden. Where is she? Lady Margaret looked away. She is dying. Eleanor froze. What? She left the cottage 2 days ago. No, I sent a carriage for her. Adrian turned sharply. You? She was brought here. Eleanor's face went white. Where is she? Lady Margaret did not answer. Adrian grabbed her arm. Where? Lady Margaret finally looked at him. Below the chapel, Eleanor felt the world disappear beneath her feet. They ran. Through the corridor. Past the chapel. Down the stone stairs. Adrian moved faster than Eleanor had ever seen him move. At the bottom, a door stood open. Beyond it was a small chamber. A lamp burned on a table. A chair stood beside the wall. And Eleanor's mother was there. Alive. Barely. Eleanor rushed toward her. Mother. The older woman opened her eyes. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she saw Eleanor. Tears filled her eyes. My darling. Eleanor fell beside her. You should have told me. Her mother reached for her face. I was trying to keep you alive. I know. You must listen. Eleanor took her hand. What? Her mother looked toward Adrian, then toward Lady Margaret. Her eyes widened. You brought him here. Eleanor frowned. He is my husband. No. Her mother tried to sit up. He cannot know. Adrian stepped closer. Know what? Eleanor's mother looked at him, then whispered. Your father did not steal the Wexford inheritance. Adrian went still. He protected it. Silence. Lady Margaret's expression changed. Eleanor stared at her mother. What are you saying? Her mother squeezed Eleanor's hand. Your father knew they would come for you. Who? The crown. Eleanor stopped breathing. Her mother continued. The Wexford Trust was not merely money. Adrian's face hardened. What was it? Her mother looked toward Eleanor. A political inheritance. Eleanor whispered. What does that mean? Her mother's voice became weaker. It means your father was not simply an earl's son. She looked directly at Eleanor. He was the secret heir to a royal bloodline. Eleanor stared at her. The candle flame flickered. Her mother's fingers loosened. And before Eleanor could ask another question, her mother whispered the final words. Your real name is not Eleanor Vale. Then she fainted. Eleanor stared at her mother. Your real name is not Eleanor Vale. The words seemed impossible. She looked toward Adrian. He was equally stunned. Lady Margaret stood several feet away, her face suddenly unreadable. Eleanor shook her mother's shoulder gently. Mother, no response. Mother, wake up. Adrian knelt beside her. She has fainted. Is she dying? No. He checked her pulse. She is alive. Eleanor closed her eyes. For 22 years, she had believed she knew who she was. Now even her name had become uncertain. She stood slowly. What is my real name? No one answered. Lady Margaret looked toward the door. Adrian. He turned. You heard what she said. Yes. Then you understand what must happen. Adrian's expression hardened. No. Lady Margaret's eyes narrowed. She cannot remain here. She is my wife. She is more than that. I know. Lady Margaret stepped closer. If her identity becomes public, every powerful family in England will take an interest. Let them. You do not understand. I understand enough. Lady Margaret looked at Eleanor. She carries a bloodline that was deliberately erased. Eleanor's voice was quiet. Why? Because your existence could threaten people who have held power for decades. Who? Lady Margaret did not answer. Adrian did. The crown. Eleanor looked at him. Why would the crown care about me? Because your father was connected to a succession dispute. Her eyes widened. A royal succession, yes. Lady Margaret interrupted. Not officially. Adrian looked at her. What does that mean? It means there was an agreement. What agreement? Lady Margaret's voice became colder. Years before Eleanor was born, a branch of the royal family was excluded from the line of succession. Eleanor listened. Your father descended from that branch, Lady Margaret continued, and because the marriage that produced that bloodline was never publicly recognized, the claim was buried. Eleanor felt dizzy. So I am royal. Lady Margaret's expression tightened. You have royal blood. That isn't the same thing. No. She looked toward Adrian, but it is enough to make certain men afraid. Eleanor turned away. She needed air. The crypt felt suffocating. Adrian followed her. They reached the chapel. Rain had stopped. The first pale light of dawn appeared through the windows. Eleanor stood beneath the stained glass. I don't want a title. Adrian stopped behind her. I know. I don't want a fortune. I know. I don't want a throne. He said nothing. She turned. I only wanted my mother to be safe. Adrian's expression softened. And now, I want the truth. You will have it. She looked at him. Even if it destroys your family. His eyes remained steady. Yes. Why? A long silence passed. Then Adrian said, because I have spent my entire life believing that power meant deciding what other people were allowed to know. He looked down. I don't want to become my father. Eleanor's expression changed. For the first time she understood him. The cruelty had always been there, but so had the fear of becoming the man who raised him. Adrian stepped closer. When I forced you into this marriage, I believed I was protecting my family. And now I know I was protecting a lie. Eleanor looked away. He continued. If you want an annulment, I will arrange it. She looked back at him. You would let me go? Yes. Even after everything? Yes. His voice was quiet. I would rather lose the title than keep you by force. The words settled between them. Eleanor looked at the wedding ring on her finger. For the first time, it did not feel like a chain. It felt like a question. She touched it. I don't know what I want yet. Adrian nodded. Then take your time. A carriage arrived at the estate later that morning. It carried a physician for Eleanor's mother. It also carried a letter addressed to Adrian. The seal was unfamiliar. He broke it. His expression changed as he read. What is it? Eleanor asked. He handed it to her. The letter contained only a few lines. The Wexford heir has been identified. If she remains at Ashbourne, the estate will be surrounded within 48 hours. Deliver her to London, or the consequences will belong to you. Eleanor looked up. Who sent this? I don't know. Can they really surround Ashbourne? Yes. Then we leave. Adrian stared at her. What? We leave before they arrive. You cannot travel while your mother is ill. Then she comes with us. Adrian considered it. You would go to London? I need answers. So do I. He folded the letter. Then we go together. For the first time, Eleanor smiled. Only faintly. But he saw it, and something in his expression softened. They left Ashbourne that afternoon. The journey to London took nearly a full day. Eleanor sat opposite Adrian in the carriage. Neither spoke much. Outside, the countryside passed beneath a pale winter sky. Inside, the silence was different now. It no longer felt hostile. It felt uncertain. At one point, the carriage struck a deep rut. Eleanor lost her balance. Adrian reached out instinctively. His hand caught her waist. For a moment, neither moved. His hand remained there. Her face was inches from his. Then he released her. I apologize. You don't have to. He looked at her. I seem to be doing that often. You should. A faint smile appeared. Eleanor looked out the window. but she was smiling too. They reached London after dark. Blackwood had arranged a private residence in Mayfair. It was small compared with Ashbourne Hall. Eleanor preferred it. It felt less like a prison. That night, Blackwood brought them the final piece of information. The original Wexford succession record is hidden beneath St. James. Eleanor frowned. Why there? Because your father trusted the church. Adrian looked at him. How do we retrieve it? Tomorrow. Why not tonight? Because the person guarding it only appears once each year. When? Tomorrow morning. Eleanor looked at Adrian. What happens if we fail? Blackwood's expression became grim. Then the Wexford claim dies with the record. The following morning, they entered St. James's before sunrise. The church was nearly empty. A priest waited near the rear chapel. He was an elderly man with white hair. When he saw Eleanor, his eyes filled with tears. You have her eyes. Eleanor stopped. You knew my father? Yes. Did you know my mother? Yes. Then tell me the truth. The priest looked toward Adrian. Do you trust him? Eleanor hesitated, then said, yes. Adrian's expression changed. The priest noticed. Then perhaps there is still hope. He led them beneath the chapel. A hidden staircase descended into a small chamber. At the center stood a stone table. On it was an old wooden box. The priest placed his hand on it. This was entrusted to me 22 years ago. Eleanor stepped closer. By my father. Yes. He opened the box. Inside was a parchment, a signet ring, and a small portrait. Eleanor lifted the portrait. It showed a young woman. She wore a simple white dress. Around her neck was the same silver locket Eleanor had carried all her life. The woman in the portrait. The priest nodded. Your grandmother. Eleanor stared. The priest continued. Your grandmother was the last legitimate descendant of a forgotten royal branch. Eleanor looked at Adrian. He stepped closer. What happened to her? She died before you were born. Did she know about me? Yes. Did she want me to inherit? She wanted you to survive. Eleanor looked down. The priest handed her the parchment. This is the original succession record. Me. Her fingers trembled. She unfolded it. There, beneath several signatures and seals, was the truth. Charles Wexford had been named heir to the royal branch. His first legitimate child would inherit the claim. Eleanor read the final line. The heir shall remain concealed until such time as the crown recognizes the succession. She looked up. So I have a claim. Yes, but not a throne. Not unless the crown recognizes it. Adrian looked relieved. Eleanor noticed. You were afraid I would become queen. He shook his head. No. What were you afraid of? That they would kill you before you ever had the chance to choose your own life. Her eyes softened. The priest stepped away. You must decide what to do with the record. Eleanor looked at the parchment. What would you do? I am a priest. That wasn't my question. He smiled. Then I would ask whether power is worth the blood required to keep it. Eleanor looked at Adrian. He understood immediately. She could expose everything. She could destroy the Ashbourne inheritance. She could claim the Wexford fortune. She could force the crown to acknowledge her bloodline. Or she could walk away. But, before she could decide, the church doors above them slammed open. Voices echoed through the building. Blackwood appeared at the staircase. They found us. Adrian reached for his pistol. How many? Too many. Eleanor held the parchment close. Who? Blackwood looked at her. Men acting under a royal warrant. Adrian's face hardened. They want her alive. Blackwood shook his head. No. He looked toward the door. They want the record. Adrian stood beside Eleanor. They will have to go through me. She looked at him. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Why? His eyes met hers. Because this time, I am choosing. The doors below burst open. Men entered. Adrian drew his pistol. The first shot echoed through the crypt. Then another. Blackwood pulled Eleanor behind the stone wall. Adrian fought with controlled precision. Not recklessly, not violently. Every movement deliberate. The struggle lasted only minutes. Then silence returned. The men who had entered were disarmed. One remained standing. He wore the uniform of a royal officer. He looked at Eleanor. You have no idea what you are carrying. Eleanor stepped forward. Yes, I do. She held up the succession record. I am carrying the truth. The officer's expression hardened. Your existence will cause chaos. Perhaps you could lose everything. Eleanor looked at Adrian, then at the record. I already lost the life I thought I had. She folded the parchment. But I will not lose the right to choose what comes next. The officer lowered his weapon. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then he said, You will be summoned to London. Eleanor nodded. I know. The royal men departed. The priest looked at her. What will you do? Eleanor looked at Adrian. I will tell the truth. 3 weeks later, the truth reached the highest circles of London society. The Wexford inheritance was restored. The forged Ashbourne succession was exposed. Lady Margaret was arrested for her role in Charles Wexford's murder and the concealment of the inheritance. The Ashbourne estate was divided. Adrian retained the title by special dispensation, but a significant portion of the fortune was returned to the Wexford Trust. Eleanor refused the royal title offered to her. She chose instead to keep the name she had been given by her mother, Eleanor Vale, not because she was ashamed of her blood, because it was the name of the woman who had protected her when no one else would. Months passed. Ashbourne Hall changed. The servants no longer whispered when Eleanor entered a room. The doors were no longer locked. The old portraits remained, but the house no longer felt like a fortress. One spring evening, Eleanor stood beside the garden fountain. Adrian approached. He was no longer the same man she had met beneath the gray skies of winter. He still wore black. He was still quiet, but the coldness had faded. You're leaving tomorrow, he said. Yes. London? For a while. He nodded. Silence. Then he reached into his pocket. He held out a small velvet box. Eleanor looked at it. What is this? Something I should have given you differently. She opened it. Inside was her wedding ring. Adrian had removed the old setting and replaced it with a simple band. No crest, no family symbol, no hidden meaning. Just a narrow circle of gold. Eleanor looked up. I don't want you to wear it, because you are my wife. He paused. I want you to wear it only if you choose me. She stared at him. You are asking me to marry you again. Yes. This time without a debt? Yes. Without my mother's life hanging over me? Yes. Without an inheritance? Yes. She smiled faintly. And if I say no? His expression softened. Then I will still be grateful that you changed my life. Eleanor looked down at the ring, then at him. She stepped closer. I think I would like to choose you. Adrian's eyes closed briefly. Relief crossed his face. When he opened them again, Eleanor was smiling. He took her hand. This time, there was no force, no command, only choice. And beneath the soft spring sunlight, the woman who had once been brought to Ashbourne Hall as payment for a debt became something far more powerful. Not a duchess, not a royal heir, not a name on an ancient document, simply a woman who had finally been given the right to choose her own life. Years later, people would tell the story differently. Some would say the Duke had rescued the lost heir. Others would say Eleanor had destroyed a dynasty. A few would whisper that their marriage had begun as an act of cruelty and ended as one of the great love stories of the English aristocracy. But Eleanor knew the truth. Their story had never truly begun with the wedding. It had begun the night she stood before a powerful man and refused to lower her eyes. And perhaps that was the greatest secret of all. She had never needed a crown to become powerful. She only needed someone to finally give her a choice. If you enjoyed this story, take a quiet moment to like the video and subscribe to Dramatic History for more forgotten romances, hidden inheritances, and untold chapters from the past.